We live in a world where misunderstandings are common, opinions are loud, and assumptions often speak before facts do. In this environment, offense seems inevitable. Someone cuts you off mid-sentence. Someone questions your capability. Someone laughs at a moment you took seriously, and suddenly something stirs inside, an ache, a heat, a tightening in the chest. But here's the subtle truth. Offense isn't something that happens to us. It's something that's offered, like a package extended toward you, wrapped in sharp words or careless actions, and in that moment we make a decision, often without realizing it. We can take it, hold it, turn it over in our hands, analyze it, replay it, feed it until it grows roots, or we can leave it on the table. See, offense is powerful not because of what was said or done, but because of what we allow it to do inside us. Think about it. Two people can hear the exact same comment. One shrugs it off, the other carries it for weeks. What made the difference? It's the meaning we assign to what was said. It's the story we begin to tell ourselves. He doesn't respect me. She always undermines me. I never get the credit I deserve. And once we accept that story, offense takes its place. Not just in our minds, but in our identity. It changes how we show up in the room. It changes the tone of our voice, the weight of our silence, the sharpness of our replies, and yet, the original moment is over. It came and went. What remains now is our choice to carry it, because the offense itself doesn't have legs. It needs ours to move forward. It doesn't have a voice, it borrows ours to speak again and again. It's important to understand this, not because offense should be ignored, but because it should be put back in its proper place. It's not a life sentence. It's not a command, it's an offer, and every offer, no matter how compelling, can be declined. There's a strange sense of comfort in holding on to offense. It gives us a feeling of power, power to say, I was wronged, power to recall every detail of what was said, how it was said, who was there, and how unfair it all felt. It becomes a kind of armor, a way to protect ourselves from future hurt. If I stay angry, I stay safe. If I don't forget, I won't be fooled again. We tell ourselves we're in control. But here's what really happens. What we're calling control is actually confinement, because the more tightly we hold the offense, the more it begins to shape us. It becomes the lens through which we see the person, the situation, the group, sometimes even the world. We may smile and move on the outside, but internally, we're replaying the moment like a scene on a loop, over and over. Every time it plays, the anger grows a little deeper. The wound stays fresh, as if it happened yesterday. And while we think we're keeping the offender in check, punishing them in our thoughts, keeping them in their place, the only one really imprisoned is us, because the truth is, offense needs maintenance. It requires constant attention. It demands you feed it with memory, emotion, justification, and in doing so, it quietly becomes part of your identity. You begin to filter your relationships through it. You hesitate to trust. You start to interpret neutral gestures as threats. You brace yourself in conversations, just in case. And every time you walk into a new space, you bring yesterday's weight with you. Not as a suitcase you can set down, but as shackles around your ankles, and no one sees them. No one knows you're still carrying it, because offense is silent on the outside, but loud on the inside. It colors everything. It tints your joy. It steals your clarity. But worst of all, it tricks you into believing you're in charge, that you're the one drawing the lines, that you're staying strong, that you're being wise by never letting it go. But what feels like strength is really survival. What feels like a boundary is often just a wall. And what feels like control is, more often than not, a cage of our own making. Letting go. It sounds simple, like a quiet whisper telling us to move on, rise above, be the bigger person. But in real life, letting go can feel like surrender, like giving up a part of your pride, your story, your right to be angry, and so we resist. We hold on tighter, because to let go feels like letting them win. We confuse the act of releasing offense with weakness, as if by letting it go we're saying what they did was okay. As if forgiveness is the same as approval. It's not. Wisdom knows the difference. Wisdom understands that holding on to offense doesn't protect us. It poisons us. It's like drinking bitterness, hoping the other person tastes it. But wisdom whispers, you don't need this, not anymore. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand revenge or recognition. It simply sees further than pain. See, strength often wears the face of silence. It shows up when you want to clap back, but choose to stay calm. It shows up when you stop trying to prove a point that nobody's listening to. Strength is choosing to take the higher road, not because it's easier, but because you know where it leads. Letting go doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't make you forget the lesson or pretend the wound wasn't real. What it does is free your hands. It frees your heart from carrying what's no longer yours to carry. Because here's something no one tells you: the longer you hold on to offense, the more it becomes a part of your identity. You stop being the person who was hurt, and you start being the person who is always hurt, and slowly that becomes your lens, your filter, your story. But wisdom steps back. It observes without absorbing. It listens without latching on. It understands that some things are better left behind, not because they weren't real, but because they no longer serve your future. Letting go is not passive. It's not pretending. It's active. It's intentional. It's the discipline of protecting your peace, your focus, your energy. It's saying, I could carry this, but why should I? And not out of weakness, but out of a deeper understanding. There's a reason offense hits different. Not all words sting the same. Not every comment lingers, but some do. Some bury themselves under your skin and echo in your mind long after the conversation ends. And the question we often ask is, why would they say that? But the better question, the harder, more honest question, is, why did that hurt so much? Offense doesn't always point outward. Sometimes it points inward. It shows us what's still tender, what hasn't healed. What part of us still needs to be seen, validated, protected? When someone says something that cuts deep, our first instinct is to go on the defensive, to prove them wrong, to shut them down, to label them the problem. But offense isn't always a weapon they're holding. Sometimes it's a mirror reflecting back parts of ourselves we don't want to confront. A comment about your work ethic might not bother someone else, but it triggers you because deep down you're already questioning your own worth. A joke about your background might seem harmless to others, but to you, it scratches at years of being overlooked or misunderstood. This isn't weakness, it's humanity, and the mirror that offense holds up doesn't lie. It reveals how much power we've given others to define us. It reveals how often our self-image depends on their approval. And it reveals where we still haven't fully accepted ourselves. See, when we treat offense like a weapon, we get stuck in a loop. We retaliate, we defend, we attack back, and in that loop no one learns. No one grows. But when we allow offense to be a mirror, we enter a different space, one of reflection. We pause and ask, what is this revealing in me? This doesn't mean the other person is right. It doesn't mean their words were fair or kind or accurate. But it does mean there's something within us worth paying attention to, because growth doesn't always come from comfort. Sometimes it comes from being poked in places we didn't know were bruised. And when we shift our mindset like this, we take the power back. We stop being ruled by other people's ignorance or insensitivity. We stop letting them decide how we feel about ourselves. We start using offense, not as a reason to build walls, but as an invitation to build awareness. Because the moment we realize offense is not just about them, but also about us, that's the moment something powerful begins to shift. There's a quiet tension that lives between protecting your peace and closing your heart, between standing up for yourself and shutting the world out, between drawing a boundary and building a wall. And when we've been hurt, disrespected, or taken for granted, it's easy, so easy, to mistake bitterness for strength. Bitterness feels like armor. It feels like a defense mechanism that says, never again. It convinces you that if you stay angry, if you stay guarded, you're safe. It tells you that forgiveness makes you vulnerable and that letting go is weakness. But bitterness isn't protection, it's corrosion. It eats away at joy. It rewrites the way we see others, and eventually it rewrites how we see ourselves. That's where boundaries come in. Boundaries are not punishment. They are clarity. They don't scream, "I don't need anyone." They simply whisper, "I know what I need." They're not about pushing people away. They're about making space for what's healthy, for what honors your values, for what helps you stay whole. But here's the hard truth. When we haven't healed, boundaries can start to look a lot like bitterness. We shut people out, not because we're protecting peace, but because we're still carrying pain. We isolate, not because we love solitude, but because we don't trust connection. And the line between healing and hardening begins to blur. To set boundaries well, we have to ask ourselves an honest question: am I choosing this boundary from a place of wisdom, or from a wound? Because bitterness is reactive. It's fueled by offense, by unresolved emotion, by fear. It turns silence into punishment and distance into revenge. It justifies coldness as maturity, when really it's just pain in disguise. But a boundary is proactive. It's intentional. It's rooted in self-awareness, not self-defense. It doesn't demand others to change. It simply defines what you will or will not accept. And here's what makes boundaries powerful. They don't require anger to be effective. You can say no calmly, you can walk away kindly, you can disengage without drama, because boundaries aren't about the other person. They're about you, your values, your energy, your growth. We live in a time where cutting people off is celebrated as strength. But true strength isn't in cutting people off, it's in learning how to stay kind without staying wounded. It's in learning how to guard your heart without locking it up. Because boundaries, when shaped by love instead of bitterness, don't just protect, they guide. They remind you of who you are and who you are becoming, healing and holding on. These two things seem like they should be able to coexist. You think, "I'm working on myself," while still remembering every word they said. "I've moved on." But you haven't actually put the weight down. You're still carrying it, still revisiting the moment, still silently hoping they realize what they did, or feel what you felt. But healing doesn't work that way. You can't heal a wound while your hand is still on the blade. You can't expect peace to flow through you while bitterness is blocking every channel. And you definitely can't walk forward while your heart is tethered to what someone else did to you. See, a grudge is like a quiet vow. It says, "I won't forget, I won't forgive. I'll hold on until it hurts them the way it hurt me." But most of the time they're not the ones hurting, you are, because grudges don't sit on shelves. They live inside you. They grow roots in your memory, they show up in your tone, they twist how you interpret the present, and they make you relive a moment that should have been long gone. The tricky part is that grudges often disguise themselves as strength. They whisper, "You're just setting standards," or "You're just being cautious." But deep down you know the difference. Standards are about clarity, grudges are about control, caution is about wisdom. Grudges are about unresolved pain. We think if we hold on to the hurt long enough, we can prevent it from happening again. But what we're really doing is keeping ourselves from healing, because healing requires vulnerability. It requires you to say, "This happened, it hurt, but I won't let it define the rest of me." And that can only happen when your hands are free, when they're not busy clutching the past. A grudge is a wall we build to keep the pain in, and everything else out. We stop trusting, we stop opening up, we expect the worst from people, and slowly we lose touch with joy, with softness, with peace. It's a heavy way to live, because even when life moves on, you don't. Even when new opportunities arrive, your heart is still stuck in an old conversation, still trying to rewrite a scene that ended long ago. And here's something most people don't talk about. Sometimes the grudge isn't against someone else. Sometimes it's against yourself. You replay what you didn't say, what you allowed, what you ignored. You hold a quiet resentment toward your younger self for not knowing better. But healing means learning how to forgive that version of you too. Because grudges don't just trap people out. They trap you in a version of yourself that's always guarded, always hurting, always bracing. And the longer you hold them, the more they shape the person you become. It's easy to react, to fire back when you've been insulted, to raise your voice just a little higher, to match their tone, their energy, their disrespect, because in the moment it feels like power, like you're standing your ground, like you're defending your worth. But true strength rarely looks the way the world imagines it. It's not loud, it's not aggressive, it's not in the clapbacks or the cold shoulders or the dramatic exits. True strength is often quiet, still, measured. It's choosing not to let someone else dictate your response. It's realizing that you don't owe every insult a reply, that your peace is more valuable than your pride. And that walking away doesn't make you weak, it makes you free. See, anyone can react. That's biological, that's reflex, that's survival, but response, that's different. Response takes awareness, it takes restraint. It takes the kind of inner security that doesn't flinch every time it's tested. We live in a culture that rewards retaliation, where strength is mistaken for dominance and silence is mistaken for submission. But strength is knowing you could fight back and still choosing not to, not because you don't feel the sting, not because you don't know what to say, but because you've learned that not every battle is yours to fight, and not every opinion deserves space in your heart. There's a deeper kind of courage in the one who pauses, the one who breathes before speaking, the one who can sit in the tension of being misunderstood and still not lash out. That kind of strength isn't reactive, it's rooted. It comes from doing the hard inner work, from knowing who you are without needing constant validation, from being okay with not having the last word, from letting your dignity speak louder than your defense. And let's be honest, stepping away isn't about walking out of the room. Sometimes it's internal. It's choosing not to replay the moment over and over in your mind. It's refusing to let their energy live in your body. It's declining the invitation to the drama, even when everything in you wants to RSVP yes. And here's the thing about people who always need to win. They need someone else to lose. But strength doesn't operate from scarcity. It doesn't need to prove itself. It knows that walking away isn't a retreat. It's a return to your values, a return to your self-control, a return to peace. Because the strongest people are not the ones who can destroy someone with a few well-aimed words. They're the ones who refuse to let someone else's weakness pull them out of character. They don't match energy, they raise it. They choose the higher road, not because it's easier, but because they've seen where the lower one leads. At some point in life, we all carry offense. We all feel the sting of someone's words, the weight of their actions, the quiet ache of being misunderstood. And in those moments, it's easy to believe that holding on makes us strong, that carrying offense gives us control, that hitting back proves our worth. But real strength, lasting strength, looks different. It's understanding that offense is offered but never forced, that we always have a choice to carry it or to set it down. It's recognizing that the offense we hold on to isn't just a reaction to others, it's a reflection of ourselves. That what stirs us the most often reveals the places we still need to heal. It's knowing that bitterness isn't protection, it's a cage, that the longer we hold grudges, the longer we stay locked in the past. It's realizing that boundaries, not bitterness, are the path to freedom. That guarding our peace doesn't mean shutting people out. It means knowing what we will and won't allow. And above all, it's understanding that the strongest person isn't the one who wins the argument, or gets the last word, or proves a point. It's the one who walks away, not in defeat, but in wisdom. Not in weakness, but in power. Because letting go isn't losing, it's choosing peace over pride, healing over history, and growth over the need to be right. The world will always offer offense, but the question is, will you carry it? Or will you free yourself from it?